into reason? Will you open your eyes?
Bill in Hayward, California.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm an atheist, although it's just recently I realized that I was, and I'm still getting used to the word. I spent 15 years in an Eastern religious cult, the Transcendental Meditation Organization.
I've heard of them, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which people think of as just a 20 minutes twice a day thing, but underneath it's a full-blown crazy, batshit crazy, financially destroying, psychologically destroying cult.
I actually didn't know that. Who's the leader?
Well, he's dead now. It's Maharishi Yogi. I have a website on it which I discuss. It's adjustability.org.
All right. I'm sure the audience can check that out. So what's on your mind?
Okay, so I spent 15 years there. Then I spun out, like a lot of people who spin out of cults, I spun into a so-called mainstream religion because I couldn't give up the idea of absolute truth.
Which one?
Hardcore Catholicism.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And I only spent 5 years in that, so I was doing better. And then I became a baby skeptic, and for the last 30 years I've been developing, I've been kind of in the informal grassroots anti-cult movement, kind of like with my website about TM. And basically I called in to make two comments, one of which is now that I've kind of tuned into the atheist community, I realize that people don't realize that there's no substantive difference between what we call mainstream religions and cults.
I think there's some awareness of it. I mean, and there's a sliding scale of seriousness, I think. It depends on what group you're in.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's kind of like autism, which is a spectrum disorder. It can be either mild or serious. And religion, cults are basically, as you said, on the sliding scale. And they, I think it's a disservice to think of religion, mainstream religion, as being in some way different substantively than cults. If you understand like the psychology of cult recruitment, then it's the identical psychology and techniques that are used in conversion and converting somebody into a religion.
Well,
go ahead.
I think that, if we talk about the absurdity of some of the beliefs, I think you're right. There's not really that much separating what we'd call cults and mainstream religion. But I do think in terms of the behaviors they use to keep people in the flock, that can, like you said, that varies quite a bit. And there are some religions that I think, qualifies as religions. They have rituals, they have dogma and doctrine or whatever. But I wouldn't call them cults. Versus others that I definitely think are cults.
Well, see, it depends on the term. Like, if you define cult and versus religion in terms of ethics, then there's a difference.
Well,
my understanding of cults is that there are some specific things that makes them cults, not religions, beyond the obvious that if a cult gets big enough, then it's a religion. But, but I mean, in specific terms, some of the things that define cults are that they sort of hide their true, they sort of recruit by disguising what their true beliefs are. Like, for instance, Scientologists do not talk about Xenu until you're right. Deep into it. And that's one of the things.
I actually discussed that on my site. The thing is, that's an arbitrary distinction.
Okay.
The anti-cult movement does that because they want people who spin out of cults into mainstream religions to feel welcome, to go, and so they make this distinction. But see, what I'm focusing on is actually the psychology of it. Mm-hmm. The psychology of conversion is identical.
You mean like love bombing, for instance?
Yeah. Well, all cults and all religions convert by inducing what psychologists call a dissociative experience, in which people's suggestibility is heightened and their critical thinking is sometimes completely shut off. And so, like the Mormons do this, they'll come to the door and they'll start talking about the burning in the bosom that they had. And they suggest that a person pray with them to see if they get a burning in the bosom. And the prayer experience is actually dissociative. Colloquially, dissociation is called trance. And then a lot of people, with heightened suggestibility, and especially if they kind of really want a spiritual experience, they'll have one. And because suggestibility is heightened, they'll have the experience, and because critical thinking is often completely suspended for some people in a dissociative state, then
right. But if I could just play devil's advocate for a second, wouldn't some groups say that also applies to like attending a rock concert?
Well, actually, dissociation and trance are completely normal. For example,
so it's not
a lot of people listening to the show right now, as with any TV show, they've lost awareness of the room around them, and they've even lost awareness of themselves.
So we are a cult. My mother-in-law will be glad to know.
And that's a completely normal experience, and people go into dissociative states many times a day. The difference is when somebody exploits it.
Well, and I think I understand what you're saying, because I think I've talked a couple of times on the show about if anybody's ever watched Benny Hinn on TV, you know, you see the intro of his show, you see these people standing there and there's soft music playing and they're swaying rhythmically, and then he comes on and he's speaking in a very soothing tone of voice, and it's almost hypnotic. And what they don't know is that music and that swaying has been going on for a long time before the opening credits of the show. And so these people, they probably are in this mild dissociative state, and then he comes in and he presents, this information to people who are in a very highly suggestible state. And so I understand what you're saying, and I think that you could take that little script and apply it to almost any religious ceremony that goes on almost anywhere.
That's exactly my point, Jen. That if you look anywhere, like even like the rhythmic, any kind of, you got to run in his prayer meetings. There's the rhythmic speaking of the preacher, and the spiritual cadence. They have the organ music. If you go to Scientology, then the initial communications course has highly dissociative exercises. Even the Amway meetings are also, I noticed that
you don't have to tell me that. I wrote a big web page on Amway as a cult.
That's basically a revival meeting. I mean, that's highly dissociative, because I've been to a couple before I figured out what the symptoms were.
Right. I'm just saying that you kind of can't necessarily paint with too broad a brush, because while a lot of religious meetings have like particular symptoms of a cult, I mean, would you say that like Unitarian Universalist meetings are also cultish?
I don't know that a Universalist Unitarian meeting induces a dissociative state.
Right. So I mean, there's a scale, like I was saying, from Universalist Unitarian meetings to like hardcore fundamentalists.
Yeah. That's what I think we're in violent agreement.
Okay.
My point is that a lot of people think there's a hard line between cults and religion.
Yeah, there's not.
Yeah, so I think we're in violent agreement about that.
Okay.
That basically my point is to look at to understand the psychology of conversion, I guess.
Right.
And the second point I wanted to make is atheists who haven't been true believers often think that true believership is a matter of just complete intellectual stupidity. But it's really a matter of having your entire worldview, you're basically having been put into an alternate reality by the psychology of conversion, to where you still remain completely intelligent, or as intelligent as you were. It's just your intelligence is applied to rationalizing your new worldview.
Right.
And I think atheists have trouble understanding that, and they just think true believers are just stupid.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a little of both, really, and I certainly am always quick to correct people who just say that religious people are just idiots. I never think they are.
Yeah, I don't think so. Some of them are, but that's not universally true. And in fact, I've got a lot of family members who are believers, and they're quite intelligent. I just think that they haven't properly applied skepticism to their religious beliefs.
Well, the thing is, once you become a true believer, the more intelligent you are, the more stuck you are, because you're better at rationalizing your beliefs.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
There's actually a book, there's a book that Carol Tavris and Elliot Aronson wrote, a book called Mistakes Were Made But Not By Me. And it's basically about how we rationalize beliefs.
Oh, okay. What is that again? I'll look at the tape. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, the name of the book is Mistakes Were Made But Not By Me.
Okay, great.
So,
okay, anyway, those are the comments I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for calling.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bye.